You have the bill. Thank you. Good afternoon, Senators. This is the afternoon session, April 27, 2023. Honorable Senators, when the business of the House suspended for lunch, we were at the second reading. We had the second reading of bills. We were at the second reading of bills, a bill for an act to amend the Central Bank of the Bahamas Act. I presume that we're now ready to proceed. But before we proceed, we're simply thrilled that today we have our second set of students visiting with us in the gallery. We have with us today grade 6 students from the Sybil Strawn Primary School. The President of the Senate, as well as the Senators, welcome you all to the gallery. Let's give them applause. As I call your name, can you please stand? The students are accompanied by their teacher, Miss Crystal Wilson. Thank you. And also with this cohort is the head girl. Her name is Aliyah Paso. Thank you, Aliyah. And Aliyah, continue to stand, please. On behalf of the President of the Senate and our female senators, Senator the Honorable Michael Bonnet Ellis, Senator Maxine Seymour, and Senator Dr. Reese Hepburn, we just want to remind you that girls rule. Let's proceed with the debate. And we also have with us the head boy. Tremonti, we have with us the head boy, Tremonti Major. The head boy is standing. I'm going to, with leave, I'm going to invite the Vice President of the Senate to just say one or two words to the head, just say 2 words to the head boy, since I had some remarks, since I said that girls rule. Tremonti Major.
At the risk of getting thrown out of here, remember that you're in charge. You're always in charge, okay? You're the man of the house, the man of the class. All right.
Thank you, Tremonti Major. We thank you so much for coming and visiting the proceedings today. We are debating the Central Bank for the Bahamas Amendment Act, and we hope that you enjoy the afternoon session, that you leave more informed. I understand that there are 90 of you to come, so you're going to come in 3 different sessions, and this is the first 30. So I just want everyone to know when you see them leaving and another group is coming, exactly what's going on. And we would make the appropriate introductions as the other groups come. But thank you all once again. It's such a pleasure to have you all, and I hope that you find the session very informative and educational. As many? The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Kirkland Russell.
Madam President, please permit me to welcome these fine-looking young students to the Senate again. I wish you all many, many success as you continue to develop as positive. Positive. Everybody say positive. Positive. young people in the Bahamas. Madam President, colleagues, good afternoon. Please permit me to begin by thanking the Almighty God for all his bountiful blessings. I am thankful that God, who could have placed me any place on this planet, chose the most beautiful place on planet Earth, the Bahamas. I am thankful for my wife, Patrice, family and friends. Thank God for inspiring Prime Minister, Honorable Philip Edward Davis, to appoint me as Senator to speak on behalf of the people of this great country. And I thank God for all of you, my Senate colleagues. Madam President, please permit me to preface my contribution by extending sincere condolences to my friend, Reverend Michael Pinder, and his family on the passing of his dear wife, Lady Stella Pinder. Reverend Pinder just recently retired as pastor of Upper Zion Baptist Church in Pinder's Point, where he served for many years. Reverend Pinder is also the vice president of the Bahamas Hotel, the Secretary General of the Bahamas Hotel Managerial Association, where I serve as vice president. I wish to also extend condolences to the families of PLP Starboard Councillors Mary Hepburn of Freeport and Mr. Allison Stewart of West End, Grand Bahama. Madam President, I know it was mentioned this morning about Black Tuesday, but I believe the day is so important that I want to, and I'm glad these students are here, I want to just go into it a little bit more, just say a little bit more about Black Tuesday. On this day, April 27, 1965, 58 years ago, the then governing United Bahamian Party saw the approval for a boundaries draft order, which established boundaries for the various constituencies of New Providence and the Family of Islands under the provision of the 1964 Constitution. During a sitting of the House of Assembly, Sir Lyndon Pinlin, then leader of the opposition, PLP, and speaking on behalf of the PLP, proposed two amendments to the revision of the boundaries draft order, which the UBP had presented. The PLP proposed amendments were designed to get a fairer idea of the number of voters across the Bahamas and their distribution. But both proposed amendments were rejected. It was at this point that Sir Lyndon Pinlin walked over to the Speaker's table and lifted the 165-year-old mace, the symbol of the Speaker's authority, and said, "This is the symbol of authority, and the authority of this island belongs to the people, and the people are outside." With that, he raised the mace and threw it through the open eastern window of the House of Assembly. Sir Milo grabbed the Speaker's hourglass and threw it behind the mace. Both Sir Lyndon, Sir Milo, as well as Arthur Dion Hanna, former Governor General, were named and forcibly escorted out of the House of Assembly by the House Sergeant of Arms and other police officers. They then exited the House and marched the hundreds of supporters gathered in the square to the Sudden Recreation Grounds. Sir Lyndon Pinlin said when he planned the action, they were conscious of the 1942 riot and did not want a repeat of that event. So the idea was to take the people to the Southern Recreations Ground and hold a peaceful protest. This was a good demonstration of the meaning and beginning of the quiet revolution. The Progressive Liberal Party described this event as an act of deviance in the pursuit of liberty and fairness. So Tuesday, the 27th of April, was destined to go down in the Bahamian history as Black Tuesday. And that protest, Madam President, set the stage for majority rule on the 10th of January, 1967. Today, we continue to say a big thank you and honor all of those who would have helped in the fight for the freedoms and rights and privileges we currently enjoy. Those giants are now blessed memories. We remember men and women like Sir Lyndon O. Pinlin and Lady Pinlin, Sir Milo Butler, Arthur Dion Hanna, Sir Clifford Darling, F.E. Walks, Dame Doris Johnson, and all the ladies of the suffrage movement, Sir Cecil Wallace Whitfield, Sir Randall Fox, Clarence Bain, Sir Arthur Fox, are just a few names that I mentioned today. There are many others, including the many Bahamian straw vendors and taxi drivers who left their business on Bay Street that blessed day to stand up for every Bahamian, born and unborn. Perhaps their names may never be individually called in these places, but heroes and heroines, they are all the same. Madam President, on the debate at hand, some of the key indicators of good governance is being able to strengthen financial systems and promote sound practices for financial stability. The bill that we are debating today, in particular, the insertion of 17A subsection 1 and 2AB, outlines that the government may access special drawing rights, 1, for the avoidance of doubt, notwithstanding any other provision of this act or any other written law, and subject to subsection 2, the minister shall be entitled to access, utilize, or convert special drawing rights allocated by the International Monetary Fund and apply the proceeds of the conversion. A, to reduce the government foreign currency debt obligations, and B, to manage the government foreign currency debt operations. Madam President, not supporting this bill means not wishing for the government to be able to access money for school improvements, not being able to access money to pay public servants, not being able to access monies to meet the social needs of the thousands of Bahamians that are in need, and ultimately not being able to access monies for the smooth running of the country. And so, supporting this resolution is a no-brainer. Madam President, it is important that we discuss some of the other roles of the central bank as well, especially those areas that affect ordinary Bahamians. It is my understanding that two of the primary functions of the central banks are: 1, the management of the national monetary policy, that is to say, maintaining the value of the Bahamian dollar. This function has always been given a keen focus by every government, ensuring that there is always sufficient or surplus US dollars in the reserves, balancing the Bahamian dollar with the US in the reserve. My understanding is that securing a strong US reserve also facilitates our ability to conduct business and trade in foreign countries. Madam President, all of this is excellent, and the Bahamian people are grateful. However, my concern and the concern of most Bahamians, especially as it relates to workers and small and medium-sized businesses, is the central bank's ability, and more so what appears to be the inability of the central bank to effectively regulate banking policies and the institution in a manner that puts Bahamian in the best financial position that they can be put in. I believe that we need banking institutions that provide opportunities for Bahamians, that does not keep the proverbial rope around his or her neck with high interest rates, hidden charges, poor service, and the dreaded fear of repossession. Madam President, it is ironic that we are debating this bill on the anniversary of Black Tuesday, because we all know that one of the much talk about mission of the early Lyndon Pinlin administration was to educate our people and get them working in places like banks. Today, some 50 plus years later, we are faced with similar challenges, and it appears as if we may have to address some of those same issues again. When you look at the fact that so many decent bank jobs are being outsourced to other countries, you are never able to call a bank in this country and speak to a Bahamian. And on certain transactions or matters that you may wish to speak to a local banker face to face, you are directed to speak to some foreign individual on the phone in some other land. Madam President, the regulator must be encouraged to address these pre-independent systems and bring those jobs back to the Bahamas. For too many of our seniors, as well as persons living with disability, they are finding it very difficult under these situations, and sometimes even impossible, to conduct their basic banking obligation. Furthermore, it appears that these banks are intentionally pushing their customers on the outside to conduct their banking business on machines. This is not who we are as Bahamians. Madam President, I am also very concerned for my family island friends and family in places like Moores Island, Andros, and several other islands where there's no bank and not even access to an ATM. Some of these islands had banks operating for years, and then suddenly the bank closed its doors. These banks are clearly demonstrating that they have no loyalty to the development and smooth running of our nation. If the island is not a high-volume destination, the residents are left with keeping their money under the bed or in a cigar box. On islands like Bimini that are bustling with tourism-related business, there is only B.O.B. and with one ATM. And when that ATM is down, residents are forced to stand in long lines on the outside for hours just to access or deposit cash on the inside. I am told that there is another bank ATM in the casino, but the local bank cards are unable to activate a transaction. Madam President, our family islands need adequate banking systems too. They need banks to run and expand their businesses, pay their bills, assist their children that are away in schools, access loans or savings opportunities, and on and on. The regulator must address the banking on our family islands or give banking licenses to qualified Bahamians. Madam President, before I take my seat, I want to take this opportunity to congratulate the Honorable Prime Minister, as well as the Minister of Youth, Sports and Culture, for the vision and resolve to formally introduce and bring into reality the National Youth Guard Program. Madam President, the National Youth Guard was started to create a core of young people who are equipped to help the nation respond to emergency and disasters, both natural and man-made, by supporting public and private agencies, ensuring that the Bahamas is better suited to respond to national emergencies. Those of us who call Abaco and Grand Bahama home know very well the catastrophic effects of killer storms like Dorian and Matthew that swept through our islands, leaving our communities in utter ruin. And when the need for an immediate response became evident, we found ourselves not prepared, not equipped, and not properly trained to mount an effective local response. The point is, responding to all disasters must begin with a local response. The troops will come, the cavalry will come behind, but you must be able to respond locally. Madam President, this National Youth Guard program is the closest version of the National Service Program that was talked about by our father of the nation, Sir Lyndon O'Pinlan. And I pray that one day, in short order, that program will carry the name National Service in his honor. Madam President, the overall expectation of NYG National Youth Guard program are to equip a generation of young citizens from across the archipelago with the skills necessary to respond to national emergencies while making every youth guard employable. The program teaches young people skills that they can carry through life while positioning them, the young people, to provide crucial service to the country in times of need. Over 200 young people applied for the program. The training started with 85 and ended with a graduating class of 65 on March 31st, 2023, just a few weeks ago. The aim now is to train a minimum of 100 young people per year to serve as youth guards throughout our various islands. Madam President, I am pleased to inform the nation that this cohort included young people from Nassau, Grand Bahama, Bimini, Eleuthera, Abaco, Andros, Exuma, Long Island, Inagua, and Cat Island. The partners that joined the Ministry of Youth, Sports, and Culture were the Royal Bahamas Police Force, the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, BTVI, NEMA, DRA, LGM Maritime, Bahamas Psychological Association, Bahamas Red Cross, as well as many local vendors who benefited from goods and services that were purchased on island. Madam President, some of the skills acquired were swimming, shelter management, carpentry, plumbing, electrical, SDCW certification, which is Seafarers Watchkeeping Certification, OSHA certification, CERT certification, fire and rescue training, and other life skill training. Madam President, Grand Bahama was proud to have been the place chosen by the government to facilitate the training, which was conducted at our police training college campus. I offer special congratulations to the 22 young Grand Bahamians from East End to West End who successfully graduated and are now serving as interns at various agencies on the island. I make special mention of Ms. Volusia Roberts of East Grand Bahama and Mr. Raymond Lightburn of Inagua, who were recognized as the two top cadets. This, Madam President, was another promise made in our blueprint for change and another promise fulfilled by this administration. Madam President, in closing, let me remind the Senate that in a few weeks, the multi-ministry West Grand Bahama Government Complex will be opening. Some of the ministries and departments that will be operating in the complex will be road traffic, social services, police, magistrate courts, public service, immigration, local government, public library, a food court, just to name a few. What does this have to do with the central bank? Well, I'll tell you. The people of West Grand Bahama will witness an influx of new business opportunities. They will see many new job opportunities. There is no doubt that the economic landscape of West Grand Bahama is about to be significantly improved. And remember, I have not even mentioned the expected September opening of the new school or the new $100 million hotel proposal that was talked by the government, the school there in Holmes Road. Therefore, on behalf of the thousands of residents and business persons in West Grand Bahama, I ask that the Central Bank of the Bahamas aggressively agitate on their behalf to ensure that there is at least one full-service banking institution operating in West Grand Bahama as soon as possible. Madam President, 8 Mile Rock is no doubt the largest single community in the Bahamas, and its economy is fueled by many small family-owned businesses. Then there is West End, which is one of the oldest settlements on Grand Bahama that boasts of a long, rich history going back to bootlegging and the sponging days. And it has maintained a strong tourist presence. Madam President, there is no doubt in the minds of the good people of Grand Bahama that West Grand Bahama, and particularly 8 Mile Rock, needs a full-service bank. Madam President, I am honored and privileged to support this bill, and I ask God to continue to bless our government and continue to bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Thank you.
Thank you for your contribution, Senator the Honorable Kirkland Russell, as many. The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Michael Bonnet Ellis.
Madam President, I offer thanks to Almighty God for allowing me to be here today, and thanks to our leader, the Honorable Michael C. Pintard, for his continued confidence in me. I was pleased this morning to greet the students, the grade 3 and 4 students from my alma mater, Tamberley School. Tamberley was, at least when I went, a very small school on Dean's Lane. And it is absolutely wonderful to see how the school has developed over these many years. I'd also like to extend welcome, although they've just left, to the grade 6 students of Sybil Strawn Primary School. Grade 6 is a extremely important year, and I wish them all the best of luck as they are on the final stretch to graduation at this point. Madam President, the subject of the present debate pains me. To me, it is a demonstration of the cabinet, the executive branch of government, forcing a regulator to act ultra vires or outside the scope of their law. In October 2021, a mere month before the dark day, the Central Bank of the Bahamas advised the public that the International Monetary Fund had allocated assistance to countries to mitigate the impact of COVID-19 on local economies. In the Bahamas, one of the direct consequences of the closure of our borders and the reduction in tourism was the reduction of our foreign currency holdings. The central bank took deliberate steps to put foreign exchange conservation measures in place to protect our external reserves and our exchange rate peg. In short, they made sure that we did not lose our favorable one-to-one exchange rate. The central bank advised that the assistance received from the IMF in the form of special drawing rights would be used to continue its foreign reserve operations. The central bank stressed that the SDRs were not being earmarked for lending to the government. It's almost as if they foresaw the temptation to access these SDRs. The bank reiterated that its ability to lend to the government remained limited by law. The staff of the central bank are economic and financial experts. They have been entrusted with fostering a stable monetary environment and a stable financial system for the Bahamas. Earlier this year, however, it was revealed that the government had irregularly used the SDRs. They said, and I quote, "Instead, the government is using resources provided by the IMF for a legitimate purpose as outlined by the IMF in its guidance notes on the treatment and use of SDRs." Mr. Vice President, I note that they did not say that they were using the resources provided by the IMF for legitimate purposes as outlined in the statute laws of the Bahamas. They didn't say it because it was not true. And the government knew at all relevant times that the use of the SDRs in a manner contrary to the Central Bank Act created a liability for the central bank. They made the central bank break the law to meet the demands of government. What kind of precedent is the government setting when it compels regulators to break the law to accommodate the desires of the government? It begs the question, are there other regulators, like the Securities Commission, that the government has exposed to liability because the laws of our country do not accommodate what the government wants done? But the most pressing question is, if the government wanted to use the SDRs for a legitimate purpose, then why didn't they amend the legislation first? I believe that it's because this government has decided that it can do as it pleases, whether the law provides for it or not. This is no different from the government's unlawful decision to ignore the Public Procurement Act 2021. And it was unlawful because they did not follow the law. The Procurement Act 2021 provided clear and transparent legislation for the awarding of contracts for goods and services by the government. This bad day administration unapologetically ignored the requirements of the Procurement Act. They did not even bother to comply with the provision to advertise the award of contracts. Apparently, publishing in the Nassau Guardian and the Tribune is too onerous and unworkable. So onerous and unworkable that they repeated the requirement in their own version of the Public Procurement Act. And Mr. Vice President, in case you were wondering, we are still waiting for the Ministry of Finance to start publishing or to provide a report on the award of contracts since this administration came to office, as was promised. Sadly, these are not the only occasions in the last 19 months when this administration's desire to do as they please has adversely affected the people that they promised to govern with integrity and accountability. Less than a month after coming into office, it was either the Minister of Works or the Minister of Finance, because we still don't know who made the decision, that decided not to renew the BPL hedging scheme that resulted in low electricity bills across the Bahamas. Without any real evidence to the contrary, they decided that this arrangement by the F&M administration was bad, despite all the evidence to the contrary. And as a result, from Bimini in the north to Inagua in the south, we have watched helplessly as our electricity bills have steadily increased and will continue to steadily increase. It all makes no sense. When the blueprint for change promised that the Davis-Cooper administration would review the operations of BPL with a view of lowering electricity costs. As the Honorable Member for St. Barnabas says, it turns out the blueprint for change was really a blueprint for pain. And then there's that now infamous trip to Bermuda. Surely it's a fundamental principle of good governance that a politician cannot, must not, shall not use public funds for a private purpose. And we know that they knew that they were wrong because it's alleged that the money was repaid to the Treasury without nary an apology or inkling of remorse. The Public Debt Management Act was enacted to ensure that public debt was properly managed. And Section 16 of that act provided that the Minister of Finance is the sole borrowing agent for the government. Yet under this administration, the Minister of Housing and Transport, contrary to Section 16, obtained a $20 million loan. There's been no explanation to justify why the Minister of Housing and Transport did not feel constrained by the provisions of the Public Debt Management Act. And as with every other unlawful action I've referred to in this contribution, this New Day administration has been unpenitent. It is unlawful for individuals to ignore laws because they are convenient. It must be unlawful for the Cabinet of the Bahamas to ignore the law. Unless, of course, the Honorable Member for Marcos City is correct and that there's a different law for the Davis-Cooper administration. Abraham Lincoln said, "Bad laws, if they exist, should be repealed as soon as possible. Still, while they continue in force, for the sake of example, they should be religiously observed." The PLP has not religiously observed the law, not the Central Bank Act, not the Procurement Act, and not the Public Debt Management Act. And I wanted to say not the Penal Code, but Jesus keep me near the cross. They promised to commit to good governance with integrity and accountability. There may have been a handful of us that actually believed that promise. But it is my view that after just 19 months in office, arrogance has already begun to rule the day, and integrity and accountability has left the building. We are all subject to the laws of this beautiful country, whether we agree with them or not. We have an obligation to abide by the law. A mere 48 hours ago, we agreed that we needed to engage in a comprehensive law reform exercise to amend our legislation so that it reflects the needs and desires of the people. But until that is done, we have an obligation to follow the laws. This administration has demonstrated a pattern of behavior that routinely disregards that the rest of us are expected to abide by. I do not support this amendment. The Cabinet has, without explanation, forced the central bank to act outside the scope of its legislative framework. It is abhorrent. We deserve better. We need to be rescued from this lawless behavior because it will only get worse. It's time to blow the safety whistle.
Thank you, Senator Barnett Ellis. As many the chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Darren Pickstock.
Vice President, honorable senators. I would like to join Mr. Vice President. I'd like to join the chair in recognizing the students from the Sybilstron Primary School. And just two words I would say to them. I'd imagine some more are coming in the gallery, but just that, you know, education is important, and that they must always keep their eyes on the prize and pay attention in school. And they can do anything they put their minds to. Mr. Vice President, we are all here today in this wonderful Bahamian democracy because of historical political actions and genuine activism of the founding fathers of majority rule, independence, and the viability of our two-party system. We are paying homage today to a dramatic and transformative act which occurred in this Parliament Square 58 years ago, which has come to be known as Black Tuesday. As we mark Black Tuesday, I want to reflect on that peculiar gem of the movement and the moment which saw the leader of the Progressive Liberal Party, Lyndon Pindling, and the then national chairman of the PLP, Cecil Wallace Whitfield, play their respective roles on what transpired on Black Tuesday 58 years ago, when Sir Lyndon Oscar Pindling threw the ancient mace out of the window of the House of Assembly. To hundreds of people gathered below to protest the governing minority, UBP, United Bahamian Party's attempt at gerrymandering boundaries for the general election. Today, it is my hope, 58 years later, that we in this place, with representatives from both the PLP, Progressive Liberal Party, and FNM, of which Sir Cecil Wallace Whitfield is founding leader, will engage in all ways possible for consensus and nonpartisanship on core and essential pieces of the people's business. Our histories are all intertwined, and so is our destiny. There are divergent paths we take on ideology and dogma, but let us never forget the governance of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas did not fall into the laps of the majority by sheer luck and or gift. It was earned with tremendous sacrifice and paid with a hefty price by the wear and the tear on the minds and bodies of some of our finest daughters and sons. Mr. Vice President, I will be reflecting on the high road the Honorable Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance took the debate on the Central Bank Amendment. The Prime Minister sought to move the Parliament to a new level of maturity and consensus, wherein the Bahamian people are the true beneficiary of what their government has to get done in order for all of us to enjoy good and responsible governance and to provide the wages, take a dent of poverty, fix our ailing infrastructure, be ready for the oncoming power of the hurricane season, meet our debt, fund our socialized medicine and wellness, and keep our Bahamian dollar buoyant against the US dollar. Alas, Madam President, there are those persons with falsetto egos and conceited ambitions, such as a challenged politician from a particular side, Madam President. This politician has become, as the Apostle Paul said, no more than a loud noise. Tinkling brass, like a jack in the box, with a severe case of diarrhea, Madam President. Jumping to his feet every split second, addicted to the sound of his own voice, just to hear his voice. Sadly, the person of whom I speak, and of whom the Prime Minister gently admonished, proves every day that he can talk on his feet, but lacks the capacity to think while his mouth is generating mumbo-jumbo conjecture. This central bank legislation demonstrates the urgency of the government in wanting to remove any and all doubt about its use of the SDR funds. This is even more important where there may exist conflicting legal opinions. How do you remedy that and remove all doubt? Madam President, I suppose that is the role and duty of the legislature. Suddenly, we are learning from a disaffected side that this should not happen. Mind you, Madam President, there are direct instances, I am reliably informed, wherein past administrations have come to Parliament to fix things, and to fix things related to the central bank, Madam President. But for those on the other side, this is now a problem. A no-can-do thing. There has been more beating on the chest than King Kong at the top of the Empire State Building. All and sundry submitting their schoolish, bookish legal opinions and thinking they can persuade the Bahamian people that they know of which they speak. The hot button word is unlawful. Well, the man and woman, boy and girl in the streets are looking at it in another way, Madam President. They are saying that this is just plain, right, awful for the politicians to stand in the way of the government of the Bahamas assessing the funds provided for by the IMF to bring relief to COVID-hurt economies. Madam President, in June, thousands more children graduating in need of jobs and further education. A nation's infrastructure on bending knees as we await an unpredictable hurricane season. The other side knows the importance of the need to use those funds for public purposes, but they have decided to vote no and to deny the people the protection and the insurance that is provided for them. And what do you think the other side is hanging their hat on? There are two conflicting legal opinions and school of thoughts. The government chooses to accept the opinion of their lawyers. It is simple. They have decided to accept the opinion of their attorneys. The amendment here today, if passed, will remove all doubt, and thus either opinion is meaningless. Yet the other side just cannot climb out of the political doldrums of their political defeat and stop opposing just for opposing sake and for the sake of opposing. Madam President, this is such an easily verifiable position to reach a conclusion on. But rather than deal with the facts and knowing the challenges of government to meet its financial needs and obligations for the Bahamian people, and having sat around the table, the politicians from the other side is more interested in headlines in the Bahamian media and floating irresponsible sound bites than anything else and than fixing the problem. I heard two women talking in the mall over the weekend, and I was just sitting down, and one of them said, "That fella could outtalk a radio, and he ain't making no sense," one of the ladies said. "I just cut it off after the third interruption. He don't even want no one else to talk, just him. He got a problem," the other lady said. What a misplaced political ego. And there are none, no, not one of his contemporaries who would tell the motor-mouthed politician that you talk some and you leave some. And for the rest of the time, you listen and you be quiet. No, not this political energizer bunny on steroids. Madam President, from what I have gleaned, the politician of whom I refer went as far in his rambling on as to suggest to the international world that the Bahamas central bank system and integrity had been abridged, and our nation was engaged in a practice with the SDR funds which were contrary to the IMF standards and protocols. Pause for a second, Madam President. This gentleman is not just content to reap confidence in our institutions amongst the Bahamian people, but he is so out of control, he wishes to engage the entire developed world to have this negative view and opinion on the Bahamas. The question for the Bahamian people and the question for this gentleman is, how do you really feel after your tirade and your irresponsible banter, which gives our country a black eye? Think about it for a moment. This is a matter that is easy verifiable. At the onset, whatever the politician was referring to, it had to be abundantly clear to him that this legislation is going to repair and remove any and all doubt as to the contrary. The legislation starts very clearly by saying, out of an abundance of caution, to clear this issue, the government is bringing this piece of legislation forward. What this legislation would do is to render immaterial any legal opinion from whoever or whosoever which may have differed with the position that the government's legal advisors gave. Madam President, there exists within our system, and because of the size of the country, it cannot be avoided, that persons entrenched by family and economic ties hitch their lives and careers to certain political parties, certain biases and prejudices, and certain interests. In such societies, it becomes imperative on any government to proceed with all caution and to remain objective and determined in the pursuit of transparency and reliability. Madam President, the meaning and intent of the IMF's allocation of the SDR funds is to assist countries whose economies were impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic are quite clear. They are for use by central banks and governments. You would think, Madam President, that a former governing party whose legacy and experience in office was punctuated by the downturn of COVID pandemic, that such a party would be most gracious and inviting of any improvement or economic or and financial relief that the country can get to deal with our issues. Sadly, for the politicians of whom I refer, this is lost on him. All that matters is he is a headline and he hears his voice on 5 radio stations, 3 television stations, and in the chat rooms. It may be good and wise for those on the other side to think very seriously about calling out their one and only non-stop talker. It is not working for you, buddy. Madam President, Senator the Honorable Michael Alcides has so competently explained and detailed these amendments and what they seek to achieve. The several purposes he mentioned should bode well for the further development of our country, the transparency of our central bank system, and more importantly, the central bank will have powers to transact special drawing rights, known as SDRs, in accordance with the standards and protocols of the International Monetary Fund, or IMF, of which the Bahamas is a member. The Honorable Minister has duly explained that an SDR is, and since this is a fairly new term in the Bahamas lexicon, I will attempt to paraphrase the Minister, because the governed need to know repeatedly and with clarity what their government is doing in their name. An SDR is an international reserve asset created by the IMF to supplement the reserves of member countries. It is not a currency, yet it has what is called a potential by member countries to draw on the currencies of members. These SDRs are contained in a basket of currency, exclusive at times to the American dollar, the Chinese yen, the Japanese yen, the British pound sterling, and the European Union's euro currency. These amendments today will govern, or for a lack of a better word or term, restrict how the Central Bank of the Bahamas can use SDRs. The amendments today will also restrict limits on which the central bank can make loans to the government. Madam President, in my opinion, the government move to bring this legislation before us expeditiously after a whirlwind of misinformation was saturated around the country by the official opposition. Both the leader of the opposition and the shadow minister for finance issued very prolific condemnations of what they allege was the government's illegal borrowing from the central bank. The Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, in recognizing the international implications of the leader of the opposition's unfortunate comments, move his government to strengthen the atmosphere around the central bank and to give the country a full and frank report on the facts. Madam President, with your permission, I shall quote from the Right Honorable Prime Minister. Open quote from the Prime Minister, Prime Minister Davis. 2 weeks ago, we tabled, and I quote, 2 weeks ago, we tabled an amendment to the Central Bank Act to limit the amount government can borrow from the central bank by approximately 50% from 30% to 15.5% of asset values. We are also prohibiting central bank purchases of government debt securities related to the initial public offering of public corporations. With these measures, we are creating more transparent processes, and we are ensuring the central bank continues to be in line with the highest international standards. I applaud the central bank leadership, including Governor John Roll, for working with us to ensure that these steps are rolled out efficiently. There are very few institutions as important to our continued national success as the Central Bank of the Bahamas. The International Monetary Fund is an organization that has 190 member nations, and the Bahamas is one of those nations. Special drawing rights were created by the IMF in 1969, and there have been 3 prior general allocations, the most recent of which was during the global financial crisis in 2009. That allocation was considered an important contributor to stabilizing international financial conditions. In August of 2021, in recognition that the pandemic was an enormous shock to the global economy, the IMF allocated $650 billion worth of special drawing rights. This was the largest debt-free form of support for low and middle-income countries during the pandemic. And the intention was to help countries whose economies were dealt devastating blows by shutdowns in recognition that all member countries would benefit from. In the IMF's words, a major effort to foster reliance and stability of the global economy. Madam President, simply put, the goal of FDRs is to provide a liquidity boost without raising debt burdens. That is it, simply put. Madam President, these assets are not loans. Access to these assets is facilitated through a voluntary arrangement between the IMF and the member countries. And during times of global financial and economic difficulty, as mentioned earlier, I want to make that last point very clear. This is not an IMF loan. It is an automatically allocated reserve that does not generate debt, does not require repayment to the IMF, and does not come with the conditions associated with IMF loans. Although we have fortunately put the worst of the pandemic in the rearview mirror, the economic harm caused by the shutdowns and the loss of tourism revenue continue to reverberate. Opening up the economy quickly and ending curfews was critical, but recovery is a big job. And utilizing SDRs is another tool for rebuilding and strengthening our fiscal position. Of course, it is not free money. The interest rate associated with the special drawing rights is 0.05%, far below market rates. We have discretion as an IMF member state to utilize these assets for our national benefit. Today, this amendment ensures that our laws align with our national priorities and needs as a government. This is not only the opinion of the government of the Bahamas. The IMF itself has supported the assertion that special drawing rights are intended to be assessed by governments and are not solely owned by central banks. During the pandemic, global economies had shut down, and these special drawing rights were intended to provide the necessary boost to keep the global economy afloat. Initially, our primary needs were to maintain our levels of foreign reserves. It was in August of 2021 that the Central Bank of the Bahamas gained access to special drawing rights valued at $247.5 million, held as international reserves. The funds served their immediate purpose, but over time, as this administration oversaw the nation's economic recovery, our needs as government changed. You see, when tourism is at an all-time high and the economy is recovering at a record pace, money is coming into the country and foreign reserves can be maintained in a way that was not possible during the pandemic. This is why the role of the special drawing rights in boosting our foreign reserve was so critical when the economy was locked down. Now that the economic situation has changed, our needs have changed. The bill before us today allows us to adapt the use of these resources. to reflect our evolving national priorities. In this instant, we are specifically addressing the foreign currency debts. In amending the Central Bank Act to allow the government to access its SDR rights, we are preserving the intended function of these resources as designated by the IMF in full anticipation that governments would have access to these funds and be able to use them based on country-specific needs. I know that there are members opposite who have been exhibiting their unusual confusion. I am an optimistic man, so I am ever hopeful, Madam President, that the member from Marco City, particularly, and his colleagues will one day choose to access research and expertise and facts before mischaracterizing important matters such as these. Just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it can never happen.
Chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Maxine Seymour.
Point of order,
What is your
Point-
point of order, please?
mischaracterization. The member for Marco City and the team, which I'm a part, consistently accesses research, facts, and actually interacts with experts when becoming public on any position,
Wait,
which
excuse
is,
me, your point of order is what? A point of clarification?
I'm sorry, it's a point of clarification.
It's a point that you made in your speech that he.
No,
that
it's
you-
not a point of, that I made in my speech. It's an imputation of, it's improper imputation of,
Of character?
correct.
Okay,
In
which-
reference to what he said in the reference to the member from Marco City.
Okay, so,
He-
so what is you're saying, okay, you're
What
looking
he
at.
said was untrue.
This, please. It's imputations of improper motives and personal reflections on the senators. Is that the one? Section 3114? Is that the rule you're referring to, Senator Seymour? On page,
Yes, I'm
on page
30,
28?
Page 28.
Look at section
see it.
14, subsection 14.
Well, he did say on his team, he did say the member for Marco City and his team, of which the opposition senators are a part. And he asserted, Madam President, that he would hope that that particular member and his team would access research and facts and information when referring to these matters. And I just wanted to be very clear that that is exactly and precisely what we do on each occasion, Madam President, and which on this occasion we would have done as well, because our position aligns with that of the lawyers of the central bank.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Maxine Seymour. Senator Darren Pickstock, can you please proceed?
Thank you, Madam President. I did not, Madam President. I
Senator
did not.
Pickstock, can you please proceed?
Yes, because I call nobody stupid. Well, I said you do not access research, and by the way, Madam President, as I indicated, I am quoting the Prime Minister, but it is also my opinion that it is impossible for them to have come to their conclusion, which they did, and access the information, which clearly is on the IMF website. Which, Madam President, this is clearly, the information is clearly on the IMF website, and so it behooves me that the opposition is coming into these chambers with the position that they're holding. Because clearly, if they had access to research, they would see clearly that their position is incorrect.
Please proceed, Senator.
Madam
Pickstock.
President,
I think that we have clarified that matter.
President. Yes, it is improper.
Senator Pickstock, can you please resume your seat? Senator
It is
Raming
improper
on the floor.
imputation even by his explanation, Madam President, because as he well knows as a barrister and one called to the bar, that with the same legislation before each attorney representing the plaintiff and the defendant in that matter, they do come to varying conclusion as to race that approach. And it would be disparaging to speak to each of any of the lawyers as being unresearched in that regard. That is the nature of law. That is the nature of debate. That is the nature of governance, to have a government and an opposition. And the success of government, which cannot be had without opposition, is based upon the precept that somebody sees something different from you. And it is rightly insulting to democracy to have that stance coming from someone who celebrates democracy, that do not tolerate the separate views and opinions of others.
Thank you.
That should be rephrased and the word impossible.
Thank you, Senator Raming. Senator Pickstock, can you please respond to the intervention?
Madam President, really, there's really no response. I don't understand the point. I simply indicated that this information, in my opinion, is on the IMF's website. This information is clearly stating, and I quote, and I would turn this over, Madam President. Right? Well, if you have read,
excuse me,
Madam
Senator
President,
Pickstock.
Madam President,
Senator Pickstock is on the floor.
if
he wants to read it, he can read it again. It's his presentation.
Then I don't see how they can derive the position they have. It's as simple as that. Now, Senator Rubin jumped up and he's talking, Madam President, about what the law says.
Okay.
He is not a lawyer, Madam President.
Okay.
Right? Okay. Number one, and if the law is very clear, then it's clear, and this to me is very clear.
Okay. Thank you. One second, please, Senator Raming. Based on what Senator Pickstock is saying, there seems to be a variance with respect to the opinion. You're saying that if that it's there, and that is your opinion of what you've read
Absolutely.
regarding the SDRs, and it's on the IMF website.
Yes.
And
But that's what I've said. No, that's
excuse
what
me,
I have said.
I don't need an intervention from you, Senator Handfield. I do not
what
need
I've
an
said.
intervention from you. Okay, I am making certain that I understand his position. You're not recognized by the chair, Senator Darren Handfield. Senator Raming, as I was
Not to
saying,
cover my mouth, but if you,
your position is that your position in this matter, as well as I think Senator Seymour, is that the opposition has in fact done their research on this matter, and you have arrived at a particular conclusion, which is different from Senator Pickstock's conclusion. And so as a result of that, you take variance with the words that he used. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so let me hear from Senator Barnett Ellis, please. Senator Barnett. Oh, I'm sorry, Senator Barnett Ellis. Raming. Let me hear from Raming first, because he wanted to make another point.
Yes, and directly to the same IMF document which Senator Pickstock referred to, where he used with such authority as the only source of authority establishing the disposition. The very same document, the same opinion of the IMF clearly states in its review and its statement that he's leaning on the words according to local laws. And the mere fact that we are here debating and making amendment to the very same local law that raised the question shows that there is at the least a reasonable doubt in here, and at the least from them stating that there is obviously debate, and the fact of coming to this point is to clear up any ambiguities and difference, shows from their very lips that they had legitimate concerns sufficient enough to bring them to this point to have this legislation. And as a result of it now fixing the problem going forward, which we celebrate, including the reduction to 50%, it shows that this fix determined that the opinion in the law was appropriate. So you cannot use that definitively to try to disparage the opposition.
he's already had an opportunity to
Thank Senator Raming. Thank you, Senator Raming.
agitating his contribution.
Thank you, Senator Raming. Senator Michael Abana Ellis, is there an intervention on your part?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. The intervention I wanted to raise was that the words used by my fellow senator, Mr. Picksock, was unparliamentary language, and to the extent that it was insulting to members of the opposition. I think
Exactly what words are you referring to?
the imputation that we came.
No,
to
you
with
said that he used unparliamentary language. What
Right.
exactly? What are the words? That what is the?
that we came unprepared, had not done our research.
Thank you.
If I had said
Thanks,
stupid,
Barnett.
it would have been on parliamentary language, which I did not say.
Senator Pickstock.
Yes, Madam President.
Senator,
Madam President.
Senator.
No, no. Madam President.
Yes, Senator Pickstock. What sayest thou?
I was merely quoting, and I said that very clearly. I was merely quoting the Prime Minister in that other house. That's what I was reading. And
I'm going to rule on this.
according, Madam President,
I'm
just
sorry.
before you rule, according to the rules, this is 37, this is 31, subsection 11. A senator may refer in a debate to a ministerial statement made in either house so long as the reference is relevant to the debate. And that's it. That's it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank senators. Order. My ruling is as follows, as far as this matter is concerned. I agree with Senator Pickstock with respect to subsection 11 that he's referring to a ministerial statement made in the other house, and it is so relevant. And in addition to that, under the Rule 17, under Rule 14, which refers to imputations of improper motive and says that the chair can rule basically based on the rules of the Senate. I see his statement that he made regarding the research, not as a imputation of improper motive, but I see it as his opinion. He's entitled to his opinion. And as I've often said here, we do not have a right to tell another person what their opinion should be. So let's proceed with the debate, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I go on to quote the PM. That is why I'm repeating the explanation for his benefit, that these resources were always intended to be used by governments to cushion the shocks and aftershocks from the pandemic. Surely he recalls the extensive lockdowns and curfews his government subjected our country to. I remember well that despite all that pain, the country's COVID cases during their reign were no better than the regional countries who had less draconian shutdowns, end quote, from the Prime Minister and Minister of Finance. Madam President, the Prime Minister goes on to scold the official opposition for their reckless commentary. Madam President, what jumps out at me is the very urgency of Bahamians everywhere doing research and paying acute and careful attention to debates. The politics of the day is always supercharged. Let's be frank about it. Politics will open any door to gain an advantage. At any time, those advantages are achieved by questionable means. At times. We saw that in the 2017 general election, Madam President. The FNM went all over the country criticizing the VAT regiment. Indeed, the leader of the FNM said, if elected, he would reduce the then existing VAT rates, and he would also explore other new areas to achieve government revenues. Well, we all know that was not true, Madam President. Within months of coming to office, the same leader, FNM leader, now sitting as Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, increased VAT rates and unashamedly made no apologies, Madam President. And here we are again today, where the new leader of the FNM, in my opinion, misspoke on the government's funding relationship with the central bank and clearly did not understand SDRs. And Madam President, the SDR's portfolio was introduced by the FNM while the FNM was still in office. There will be some who will proffer that there is no legitimate excuse for the unfortunate remarks of the FNM leader and its shadow Minister of Finance. It is my hope that the Bahamian people are paying attention and have put on the whole armor of righteousness to stand against what may be a continued performance of misinformation and propaganda from the FNM to bolster its very bleak fortunes. Madam President, here we are, 2 months out of our nation's 50th independence anniversary, which also is intertwined with the birth of the Central Bank of the Bahamas. I don't want to sound or seem as if I'm talking down, Madam President, to anyone or being disrespectful of anyone's understanding. That is to say that every Bahamian has a sacred duty to become thoroughly cognizant and well-versed on the pillars and systems on which their country operates and is managed and how we fit into the broader world picture, Madam President. The central bank and how it impacts our country and our way of life should be trite knowledge for every adult Bahamian. We need to fully comprehend the work, duty, and importance of our central bank and what it does and what more we want it to be doing. I sometimes get the impression that many of us just go along with the mindset that politicians would fix it, or that the job of the people who work in an institution or agency, and that is not the requirement of the ordinary citizen known to know their country. Well, Madam President, it is clear politicians don't know everything, right? Politicians don't know everything, and that is clear. That is demonstrated clearly. Not just the names of the islands, their capitals, but to know how core pillars function, Madam President. And not just the central bank, but the legal system of which a bill is before us, which a bill was before us on Wednesday. How NIB works for and when you can't work or function. The functions of the two houses of Parliament. What is a cabinet conclusion? How do I petition either the House of Assembly? How are budget allocations used? What is a line item in the budget? We should know all of these things, Madam President. We need to do our part in beyond talking in this place to determine our people's grasp what we are talking about. And of course, we also grasp what the people are saying to us, Madam President. Growing after this 50th mark is reached will require more than just knowing what the salary increase is. As important as that is, or when the government will pay increments, as important as that is, I want my Bahamian society to become well-versed in civics, Madam President. We all know about the IMF, the International Monetary Authority, and the big stick it wields on countries' economies. We need to all learn a little more of how this function, or how it functions, its functions can also assist small countries such as ours. We have all learned of late about rating agencies like Moody's and how their opinion impacts our global economic standing. We need to learn even more, Madam President. What I am saying, Madam President, is that 50 years into having to tote our own water, it is doubly imperative on every citizen and resident of the Bahamas to fully appreciate and understand how the country is run and what international obligations and inspections we are subjected to. This is so vitally important going forward because out of ignorance, Madam President, or an unwillingness to learn ourselves, along will come the charlatans, Madam President, the sultans, and the swing, who will come along and skewer and misrepresent the facts and the issues and prey on those ignorance to selfish political gain, Madam President. We have lived through the propaganda and distortion on the terms which are now known or rings on everybody's lips as our natural resources. We have lived through a period where a repeal of legislation known as the Sovereign Wealth Fund Act, and to which a new, more resilient and transparent act came into force, was misrepresented and turned on its head to suggest something nefarious had taken place. Madam President, these amendments today to the Central Bank Act and the new term SDR and the limits placed on government borrowing from the central bank will and can suffer the same misrepresentation as we have seen so far, Madam President. Kipling wrote, and I quote, "If you can bear to hear the truth, you speak twisted by the knaves to make a trap for fools." These are serious and compelling times. Social media is a blast with misinformation and spurious and salacious fraudulent opinions. We in this place, who are called upon to serve at this level, Madam President, must also covetously protect and preserve what we do here. As members of this legislative chamber, we have to be unyielding in defending what laws we pass here and what we say and do. We don't have to necessarily agree, but at no time should we remain silent and be found complicit in our silence when we hear the knaves attempting to dismantle or disabuse the work we do here in this chamber. Madam President, our job is made even more easier when our people take it upon themselves to do the research, listen to what is being said, and ask questions of informed and responsible persons who do not have an agenda. Come on, we have been at this for 50 years, and the next 50 years will be critical to the extent that every citizen must pull their weight and be the best, and the best way to do that is for every citizen to fully understand what is being done in their name and to find the time to seek out the answers and understand the issues. Every Bahamian child, regardless of their grade assessment, in any local exam, sat through the curriculum. So I submit that they are quite capable of understanding and evaluating, Madam President. Google and the search engines have to be used for more than just shopping and celebrity gossip or sports. We need to stop gossiping and spurring misinformation and start Googling. Today, we amend the Central Bank Act. The central bank is the epicenter of the management of our economic status, and hundreds pass the building there, right there, Madam President, on Prince Street or Frederick Street or Market Street every day, and do not pause to decipher the importance of the central bank in our lives. Honorable Senators, we all had a good laugh recently when social media began circulating how scores of persons were describing what the term carbon credits and carbon footprint mean. We can't afford to laugh anymore, Madam President. We must educate for the country to grow and for our people to be robust, Madam President. We can no longer entertain the notion that who ain't know don't want to know, Madam President. We must educate our people, Madam President. Let me again repeat on that note how the term SDR is defined on the IMF website. An SDR allocation is a way of supplementing fund member countries' foreign exchange reserves, allowing members to reduce their reliance on more expensive domestic or external debt for building reserves. End quote. Madam President, as I wrap up, Madam President, the Honorable Minister for Economic Affairs has defined what an SDR is and what it's all about, how it will work, and how it is designed to give countries much ease of burden and pressure on their foreign reserve. Madam President, I predict that before the legislative term, we will have before us even more interesting legislation related to the Central Bank of the Bahamas for our deliberation. Our people must watch, listen, hear, make comment, and ask questions. It can and must not be left exclusively to legislators. The system works best when the governed understand what we are about to do, contemplate doing, or have done. Madam President, I support the amendment to the Central Bank Act 2023. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your contribution, Senator the Honorable Darren Pickstock. As many? The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Darren Henfield.
Thank you, good sir.
You're welcome.
Madam President, let's turn it around. This thing is tricky, so you have to handle it carefully. Madam President, let me begin by saying thank you for acknowledging me, giving me an opportunity to speak in this place. Covering up the notes. I need my notes. I believe I should share my opinion of ignorance. I believe it's extremely ignorant, in my opinion, for someone to come into an argument or debate assuming that the other side didn't do their work. That's the epitome of ignorance, in my opinion. Epitome of ignorance. Especially when you're referring to colleagues. And you know, what is so amazing about this is not only us on this side who disagreed with what happened with this bill, you know. The external lawyers hired by the bank also disagreed. We share the same position as them. We share the very same position as them, as they did. But the government is the government. The government must do what it must. We understand that.
That's why we're here today.
We understand that. No, that ain't why we're here today. We're here because you broke the law. We're here because you broke the law, and we come here to fix it. And we come here to fix it.
Senator Henfield.
That's why we're here
That's
today.
your opinion.
That's why we're here today.
Senator Henfield, can you please speak to the chair?
That's your opinion.
Sometimes I can look somewhere else, but I'm speaking to you always.
No.
That's why I say, Madam President.
Senator Henfield.
That's why I say, Madam President. Let me.
Senator Henfield, I need you.
Me let me work in here, right? That's all I ask.
That's what church is for,
Yeah,
Senator Henfield. You're in the upper chamber.
You know.
Wait,
yes,
Senator
Madam
Henfield.
Yes.
Please yield. I need you to look at me,
Let me take these
And-
off,
and-
please, for reading.
and speak to me, okay? Don't mind the other senators. I know that they are very attractive and good looking, but just stay focused
I
on.
don't.
Just stay focused on
I don't
Madam
go
President.
that way.
please.
So if it's anything for me to look at, I always look this way. I don't go that way. I don't go that way. You know, and studying the law and reading the law, we learn about legal arguments. And you know, there's a term, there's a Latin phrase in there called ad hominem. And it describes when you can't handle the argument, you attack the person bringing the message. And I hear that so often, you know, berating names called or asserted against the leader of the opposition or anybody who differs from your view. Well, the reason for debates is so that we can come and present our sides, Madam President. You stand on your side, your view, and we have our view that we want to present. So to call us
but to assert that we're stupid and don't do our research and don't do our work because we have a different point of view.
Madam President,
I think that's
Please,
stupid.
Please, yeah.
the member opposite, nobody's asserted that, Madam President. I would like him to withdraw that.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, please.
Thank you. Have a seat. Senator Henfield.
In my opinion, he called me stupid.
Senator Henfield, Senator Pickstock did not use the word
In my
stupid.
opinion, he asserted that I was stupid.
That
what he
is
did.
not the word that he used.
That's what he
I'm
did.
going to have that struck from the record. And
As you
I'm
wish.
also going to rule on parliamentary that you are saying that his opinion is ignorant or stupid.
Madam President,
So we're going to have both of those words struck from the record.
Madam President, you
please-
preside over these.
please
you,
proceed.
You may do as you will, but
Yes.
what you ought not do is descend into the arena with us. You are a free and fair adjudicator, right? To judge between us, but not to ascend into the arena and fight with us.
With much respect, Senator Henfield, I don't need for you to exemplify
didn't
or
think
tell
so.
me what my duty is here
I didn't think so.
within the Senate chamber. I know the rules and I know exactly what I should be doing. So I would firmly suggest that you proceed with your presentation and your debate. And I don't need a lecture from you. Thank you so much, Senator.
Oh, what a
Henfield.
tangled web we weave. When we first set out, practice to deceive. That's the Walter Scott, that ain't Mark Twain or some other person. We are here. We are here today. You keep listening. You can hear what the relevance is. Notwithstanding the very compelling argument made by the learned Minister of Economic Affairs relative to the use of the funds, a man whom I have the utmost and greatest respect for. Never hear him coming here and run on with nonsense. Diatribe. He makes his point, Makes his point very intelligibly
You make yours.
and very forcibly,
Make yours.
but without personally attacking colleagues.
Make yours.
That's what I respect and love about Minister Michael Halkitis. If we had more like him in politics, country would be a better place, far better place, right? So notwithstanding the very compelling argument made by the learned Minister of Economic Affairs relative to the use of the funds, we on this side are in agreement with the advice given to the central bank by its external counsel, which likely causes us to be here today. Because if the central bank didn't get this advice, right, which suggested to them that what the government was doing by drawing down on these funds was not enshrined in domestic law, we would likely not be here today. That said, what you've done is borderline brilliant. You've caused your otherwise illegal and contrary act to be adjudicated in Parliament, where the jury is rigged. There you have the numbers. But no amount of clever lawyering, bluster, obfuscation, or denigration will change what you've done. The unmitigated gall. Break the law and then you come here and blame us for it. Man, that's why I always say, I wonder, Madam President, if the Bahamas is a real place. I wonder that because if you had not broken the law, what would we be here? Why are we here today? Why are we here today retroactively putting laws in place to cover what you have done? We debate the Central Bank of the Bahamas Amendment Bill 2023, which from our perspective is mired in controversy, and we will not support it. It is our considered view that the government has acted contrary to the law and now seeks our complicity with their act. That cannot happen. Cannot happen. In fact, it is also our considered view that this administration has demonstrated a wanton propensity to act in opposition to the law whenever it wishes to. Whenever it suits them, they simply ignore the law, We saw this with as we heard from Senator Barnard Ellis, we saw this with the Public Procurement Act, which they voted. We didn't break the law. There was no law broken with Obama. There was no law broken with Obama. Right? Maybe, in fact, Obama never happened. We saw this with the Public Procurement Act, which they voted for in opposition and ignored for 18 months after coming to office. We saw this with the trip to Bermuda, where members of this administration just went into the public treasury, draw out funds for a political trip to campaign with their colleagues in Bermuda. We could name some other things where we saw this, but I wish not to belabor the point. And now we see it with the special drawing rights, advanced by the IMF to member states in order to provide additional liquidity. You're safe with me, I always tell you that. To provide additional liquidity to the global economic system, supplementing countries' foreign exchange reserves and reducing their reliance on more expensive domestic and external debt. And you know, before I go on, Madam President, permit me to say that this is a very disturbing headline in this morning's Tribune, which says, this is April 27, 2023. The headline reads, LaRota warns NIB running on fumes. This is a very serious problem in this country. This is a very serious problem. We get time to come in here and run out with nonsense, and we can't fix what is happening with NIB.
Why didn't you fix it then?
You in charge now, man. You in charge now. You in charge now. This is a very, very disturbing thing. I have people. I can table this if you wish. I have people calling me. I have people calling me all the time and asking.
You were in the capital. 2 years now.
Order. Senator Henfield is on his feet.
Thank you, Madam President. I have people calling me from Abaco all the time and elsewhere and asking me, what's going to happen with my pension from National Insurance? I worked so hard all these years to put in my share. Are they going to change the age? Are they going to put the retirement age up? It's disturbing when a minister who sits around the cabinet table continues to appear in the press and elsewhere and suggests that unless something happens urgently with this fund, we're all going to be in trouble. It's very disturbing. And I believe that the government should post haste address this issue. Post haste, in the interest of all Bahamians, in the interest of all Bahamians who are concerned about their pensions. And so, Minister LaRota, I support you. Your sentiment is that something should be done. You're my friend. I support you from this place. In his press release of 27th of August 2021, the Central Bank of the Bahamas noted its intent for the use of the SDRs as follows. And I quote, the central bank intends to use the SDR allocations for foreign reserve management operations, in particular, holding them available for any increase in foreign exchange needs expressed through the private and public sectors. Any amounts converted to US dollars would attract costs to the central bank at the prevailing interest rate, and we've heard this interest rate all day, which is currently 0.05%. Madam President, as suggested by the retroactive date of this piece of legislation, which is December, the government drew down on a reported $232.8 million in special drawing rights from the central bank, we believe sometime in December 2022. I stand corrected. The Bahamian people were not officially informed of this underhanded transaction until officially informed. See, that's how you always know when people practicing skullduggery, right? Skullduggery, man. The Bahamian people, that's an old word for your young fellas. The Bahamian people were not made aware officially of this skullduggerous act until you get up on your feet and say it, until the 6th of January 2023, through a press release entitled Statement on the Use of SDRs by the Government of the Bahamas, in which the Ministry of Finance appeared to be responding to sentiments in the public domain. relative to the SDRs. I'm a soldier, man. I could be the most docile person in the world. But soldiers, when they call to fight, they fight. And not all my life. I almost feel like Oprah on the color paper. All my life I had to fight. Right? Right? And so here's what sentiments we get from the statement issued by the Ministry of Finance. The statement commences as follows. The Ministry of Finance is aware of statements in the local journals on 4th of January 2023 characterizing the government's use of special drawing rights, SDRs, as borrowing or printing money, which are misleading. The government is not borrowing from the central bank and creating money. Instead, the government is using resources provided by the IMF for a legitimate purpose, as outlined by the IMF in its guidance notes, so on and so on, treatment of the SDRs. But my question is, if you went to the central bank and got these monies from December, why it going to take you, and that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. That's what? Almost $233 million. $232.8 million. Just under $233 million. You're going to go and make that kind of investment on behalf of Bahamian people, that kind of extraction from the central bank. And you ain't going to talk and tell the journals, according to your statement, and tell the journals out you and say, look here, the government borrowed money from the central bank. Then you're forced to come and explain, and then you're forced to come into this place and repair your breach.
Are you going to table these stuff, Senator?
I could table anything you want me to table, my lady.
Thank you.
I have them all right here.
Oh, are you going to table them at the
I have
end?
them all right here. Contrary to popular belief.
Yeah.
No. Let me. Could I just keep going?
Sure.
And then,
Not a problem.
then at the end.
Please proceed. Thank you.
Then at the end, right? So what happened was, the government was accused in the press of borrowing and printing money, and then the government was compelled to come out and respond, and then the opposition started to raise the alarm as well, right? Then the government was forced to come out and respond in its press release. I got the press release right here. You know. Yeah, this is right here. Press release stated 6th of January. And it reads as follows. The Ministry of Finance is aware of statements in the local journals on 4th of January 2023 characterizing the government's use of special drawing rights, SDRs, as borrowing or printing money, which are misleading. The government is not borrowing from the central bank and creating money. Instead, the government is using the resources provided by the IMF for a legitimate purpose, as outlined by the IMF in the guidance notes on the treatment and use of the SDR. Well, if you can use them for legitimate reasons, you could go and get it. Why you can keep that a secret till the 6th of January? And you hear people, you hear all these rumblings and grumblings and going on.
6 months.
And you can keep that a secret. You ain't gonna come and tell people, no, you're misguided. We are lawfully entitled to go, as you're saying now. We are lawfully entitled to go into the central bank and draw down on these reserves because that's what the IMF gave them to us for. The IMF gave us the money, you know, because we, like many other member states, were reeling from the impact of COVID. And they wanted to buttress our foreign reserves so that we could maintain some stability. So that's one I have to sign for you. That's why they gave us the money. Governments do what they must. We understand that. But what we don't appreciate is deception. Deception and duplicity. Come and tell us, we need this money, we need to use this money. And tell the Bahamian people, you could have projected that you wanted to use the money when you reported to the House of Assembly the other day, when you put in your fiscal performance report. Didn't. Mums, quiet, not a word on it. When all is said and done, we, like many members of the public, do not believe that such a significant fiscal undertaking by a transparent and accountable government, rightly or wrongly, should be kept a secret from the Bahamian people. It appears as though if the deed was not discovered, we would still not know. And I think it had to come out because the central bank made known their displeasure and forced a memorandum of understanding. Which, in that memorandum of understanding, I hear people say this, loan. Well, don't call it a loan. Call it a liability. Call it a debt. Call it anything you wish. But I know it has to be repaid to the central bank. By any other name is borrowed from the central bank. And it must, they say, vehement phraseology, borrow. It has to be paid back. And I think the memorandum of understanding was not correct. I don't know if it was tabled in this place, but what I saw, it has a date due for when that money should be given back. Yeah, these are rough times. These are rough times. These are rough times, and the government got to survive. The people of the Bahamas got to survive. So with the greatest of respect, we need no long running on in here. I ain't gonna stay long. I don't see this as a legal argument, right? I see this as an argument of facts and fiction. And lawyers, be they ignorant or not, they look at issues. The lawyer will look at the issue. And what is the issue before us? The issue before us is the legality of how you got the money. Didn't matter what you did with the money. Didn't matter, what you wanted to do with the money. Didn't matter if you could access the money. But the issue is, did you access the money legally and lawfully? And we say you didn't, because that's why we're here today. The government acted per its modus operandi since the time it came to office. And I'm afraid for this government. I'm afraid for some of my friends in this government. You do as you wish, despite the strictures of the law. You wipe your mouth, and you move on, even if it means dragging the rest of us behind you while screaming and hollering every step of the way. That's a sense of entitlement. Doesn't matter what the law says. Put out the tenders for procurement. Doesn't matter if the law says that. Make some excuse and then just keep putting out stuff, and then doesn't matter what the law says, paying people under the table. Nobody know how much they're getting. They aiming people money,
Madam President.
They aiming people money.
The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Darren Pickstock.
Yeah. Madam President, I stand on a point of order. The member seem to be indicating that the government is paying somebody under the table. And, that is improper. And so if the member has some evidence of anybody being paid under the table, please, he should, make it clear. Otherwise, just withdraw the statement.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anytime
Thank you, Senator Fox.
Anytime you can settle lawsuits, and the Bahamian people can't know to this date what you gave each individual. That under the table.
No.
That under the table.
Senator,
And under the table simply means you can't see it.
Senator
Simply means you can't see it.
Handfield.
If I could look at it and see it, I'd pull it out and say, well, this is what so and so got.
Senator Handfield, I'm speaking. Can you please yield?
Yes, my lady.
Thank you. The connotation that you made with respect to paying under the table, it's an improper imputation, because it leads to, or it implies something illegal and untoward.
I know the philosophy of my.
I am going to ask you to.
So can I call them secret payments then?
I think you need to call it for, if you're referring to it, let's call it for what it is. But I am going to order that secret, that payment under the table is struck from the record. So if you want to address it and find another term, then we should.
Payment, because ain't nobody know to this date. Only certain people know. And I don't, when I look at
Senator Handfield.
Yeah, when I look
Senator
at
Handfield.
approach, my friend,
Senator Handfield.
agree with that.
Senator Handfield, I'm speaking.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. So thank you, Senator. So I'm going to strike from the record payments under the table, and I would appreciate if you would rephrase that.
I'm in your court. I shall act as you say. I'm in your court. I enjoy your coverage. Well, the payments were secret. They were secret. They were secret. They were secret. They were secret payments.
Madam President, again I stand On a point of order, improper imputation by, I mean, if he knows of any secret payments, he's referring to payments as being secret and really inferring that something nefarious happened. I would ask that he would also withdraw his characterization of those payments, Madam President.
Agreed once again that it's an improper imputation to use the word secretive. Senator Henfield, can you please withdraw? Can you please withdraw? Use another term.
Let me tell you why they say. Let me tell you why they say they kept the payment secret.
No, Senator Henfield.
They said. No, this is what they said. This is what they said. They use it here. They use it here, right?
Senator Henfield. Senator Henfield. Is there something that you can refer to where there's a direct quote that said that the payment was secret?
No, I cannot and I will not.
Okay.
The payments were secret.
Okay.
They were under the table, and the Bahamian public still don't know what they are.
I'm going to order that is struck from the record.
I cannot.
The use of the word secret and under the table.
I cannot.
Please proceed with your contribution. Thank you.
Yeah. Public still speculating how much it is. Who got what? And why? Public still speculating that. So, Madam President, according to the government specifically, we've heard that this act shall be deemed to have come into force on the first day of December 2022. Section 2, insertion of a new section 17A into number 24 of 20 of this amendment is instructive and reads in part as follows. The Central Bank of the Bahamas Act 2020 is amended by the insertion immediately after section 17 of this new section, 17A as follows. And I read 17A, which we've heard all day here. Government may access special drawing rights, and this is what I found very curious. I don't know if I ever saw this in a piece of law, for the avoidance of doubt. My learned friend, can you help me with that? I don't know if I've ever, I'm very unfamiliar with this term. This for the avoidance of doubt. I don't recall seeing that ever before in any piece of legislation. So that means what it says to me. Let me put it this way. In my opinion, even the government had doubt about what they were doing with this. And they want to ensure that there is no doubt in my mind, or any of the public's mind, that what they're doing retroactively was the right thing to do. Notwithstanding any other provision in this act, any other written law, subject to subsection 2, the minister shall be entitled to access and utilize. I don't think I want to do no more of that. How much time I got left? So Madam President, we don't see this debate, at least I don't, as some technical legal argument, I don't see it that way. Where this side does not accept the position, we don't accept the position that you have on that side. And that's our rights. That's our right. It is our right not to accept that you pouring water on me and calling it rain, pouring it from someplace else and calling it rain, man. That's, you have the numbers. You have the numbers. You have the numbers. You can have your say. You can have your way, but we can have our say. That's the parliamentary idiom that we follow in the Bahamas, man. You can have your way, but we can have our say. And it's amazing to me. I've been in this place now. Well, I spent 4.5 over there. Almost 2 here. Right? And the metamorphosis that you see that happens in governments. It happened to us. Right? The metamorphosis that takes place. Right? So you get to the point that I made this point here on Monday, Tuesday, I think it was. You get to the point you can't hear nobody else. And I don't know if we drink the Kool-Aid or what it is. I don't know what it is, right? But we come up with the strangest reasonings and rationale and call other people ignorant. Say they don't read, they don't study, because they don't see it your way. Mind you, all us graduate from university, you know. All us pass the bars. Can't pass the bars and stuff if you don't read, man. No, I passed the bars in the Bahamas. I didn't go to one of those inns in England. I passed the bars in the Bahamas. And the Caribbean has a very tough bar to pass. Very proud of my disposition there. And so, Madam President, we don't see this debate as at least I don't, as some technical legal argument where this side does not accept the position of that side. You know, we submit that if what the government did was above board and legitimate, we wouldn't be here today. We wouldn't be here today putting in place retroactive law to legitimize what was done. For me, it's just that simple. That's a simple argument for me. You ain't got to get into all that technical gymnastics and the rest of it. What the note from the IMF says, what the note from the central bank says about the modalities of the use of these funds. You ain't got to get into all of that. The simple conclusion to me is that we are here today because you unlawfully and forcefully extracted from the central bank these funds. Unlawfully. If the government could safely access the SDRs without more, we wouldn't be here today having to ratify their deceitful behavior with public funds. Madam President, on this side, we sense the anxiety of the central bank, which from our summation was not at all comfortable with the government's decision to draw down on the SDRs. That's why they required the government to do an MOU. And that's why they offered the government, they showed the government, you know, this is our legal opinion. You have your lawyers, we have our lawyers. Our lawyers say we don't think it's safe. The government says it's safe. And I can tell you some sharp lawyers in this government. Very sharp King's counsels. And so what they did, and I'll repeat this, you know, in case you miss it. So what they did was brilliant lawyering, you know. Brilliant lawyering, right? So you go in and you bring a retroactive law after you and do what you want. And then you bring it to your court. Have your judge and your jury approve it. Brilliant. Brilliant. But Bahamian people ain't missing that, you know. They ain't missing that. No, you say we don't read, man. I don't know if we don't read, I don't know what they're doing or there. Brilliant lawyering. Skillful. And you can't out-argue them. I can tell you that. So we sense the anxiety of the central bank by causing us to be here today. And the one good thing, of anything you could say about this, is that the government listened to the central bank and brought this bill here. That's the one good saving grace I see in this. I would be a most happy man if they could say that we brought it here because we had to. After taking it, we realized we have to come and legitimize our act. But we ain't here that. Maybe, you know, we never know, you know. You have Senator Halkitis here. As reported by Neil Hartnell, Tribune business editor, on the 25th of April, 2023, under the heading Central Bank Warned Over Government Lending Limits Breach. It is stated that the Memorandum of Understanding MOU between the government and the central bank, which facilitated the transaction, shows the alarm was raised by the latter's, meaning the bank's, external legal advisors, to such an extent that the Central Bank Act had to be amended out of an abundance of caution over the SDR deal. So our position in this regard is not novel. Our position is not novel. Our position is the same taken by the external legal advisors of the central bank. So I guess they're ignorant too. They don't read. They read. They read what the IMF said about how to use these funds. The external lawyers, who I believe are foreigners, I don't know. I think they may have been. They're not foreigners. Okay. Well, anyhow, they gave their opinion.
They gave their opinion to the central bank, and as good counsel would do, they asked the central bank to err on the side of caution. If you ain't sure what's happening, yeah, let's protect yourself. Let's err on the side of caution. The government lawyers say otherwise. The report goes on to quote my learned colleague and friend Kwesi Thompson, opposition spokesman for finance, as saying this. I write to the end now. And I quote, "Clearly the government was caught red-handed and is now bringing legislation in an attempt to wipe the slate clean from their breaking the law. The fact that you are bringing this now and making it retroactive to December is only proof of your breach." Madam President, as I take my seat, I caution my colleagues opposite. You know, there's a saying about power being absolute. Then you have it, you know. Caution my colleague opposite to slow down with that. Not because you have the power to act and do as you please. Well, you know how they coming. You know how they coming when the people will judge, as they judged us. Right? No, I'm not reeling for it. I believe in democracy. The voice of the people, one good man said, in 1992, one good man said, the voice of the people, the father of the nation. Of course, me even ain't acknowledge the father of the nation. You know, and Black Tuesday. And that noble fight undertaken on behalf of the majority of the Bahamian people, of which the FNM was a part. Sir Cecil Wallace Whitfield, right? Sir Arthur Folks, some others of them, Maurice Moore and all these fellas. May have been there too, I'm not sure. My good friend, I got to call him and ask him, right? And so I see some light at the end of this tunnel, you know, because I see now that we're beginning to acknowledge in this country that not only members of the Progressive Liberal Party fought for the freedoms and rights of the majority of this country, and that's a good stride. That's a good stride. We thought you stopped being the Progressive Liberal Party when Sir Cecil left you. Sir Cecil was no longer convicted that the Progressive Liberal Party was the one that he started in.
So he formed the new PLP.
Formed a new
PLP.
So he formed a new PLP.
The free PLP.
How much more time I got while these fellas distract me? Thank you. So
The free PLP.
So he formed the free PLP.
Start calling them again.
And then he realized he didn't want no more association with that. So he called himself the Free National Movement. And the movement is because we have a big tent, we take you as you come, you know? That's what the movement is. That's what the movement is, you know? And so, Madam President, I caution my colleagues opposite to try and follow the law. Try and constrain yourselves from just arbitrarily acting as you feel, as you will. Constrain yourselves. You don't hold a bully pit on lectures. You stood there and proceeded to lecture us for a good 15, 20 minutes. Good 15, 20 minutes. But you know, you have this a priori concept. You've probably been to school in England. I only been to school here in the Bahamas. Unless I meant, I'm sorry, Senator. You have this a priori concept that is your way or no way. It's the right way, you know? You got BTE behind your name, right? I've been there, but to study naval science, not law, right? And so I caution my colleagues on this side, on the other side, to restrain yourselves. And at some point, you're going to have to take responsibility for governance. You're going to have to fix NIB. And at some point along the way, I realized this in our term at a certain point. I believe the clerk remembers this in our sitting in that parliament. At some point, we could no longer blame the PLP for mistakes. The people didn't elect us because of mistakes the PLP made. Maybe that was a part of it. But the people elected us to do better. They elected you to do better. You can come here now, this is almost 2 years now. I mean, you won't blame us and all for this today. Well, say we ain't read. At some point, you're going to have to take responsibility for governance and govern the country. Stop obfuscating and pontificating and and calling people names and looking for this blame and that blame, that's beneath you. The Bahamian people in its totality who voted had the confidence that you can make the Bahamas a better place. So far, you're all in on a good wicket. You're all in on a good wicket. Spending plenty of money traveling and plenty of money partying. But you're all in on a good wicket. We wasn't the only people who had them locked down, you know. The world was locked down. The world was locked down. And as history will judge, you know, history already judged, because apparently we were fired because of that, right? But at some point, you're going to have to govern. At some point, you're going to have to make and take tough decisions. Passing legislation is one thing, but passing legislation to help people is another thing. You know, I go home to Abaco and people asking me all the time, what happened to the monies committed by the DRA to help us rebuild our homes? What happened to that? All the time they ask. And you came in on the promise that you would help these people, some of whom still don't have roof. And then I get a report, I hear some nonsense about, can't be true, about an 80-odd-year-old woman being evicted from a mortgage corporation home. It can't be true. It cannot be true. A woman where the roof was put on by NGOs, who came to help the people in the government, and she hustled some windows and stuff. This is the report I'm hearing. And then I'm hearing some other stuff, allegations about land being given out in Green Tail Key to supporters of the Progressive Liberal Party. Just being given out. I tell you, I hear it. I didn't tell you it happened, I tell you, I hear it.
Chair, can I send the Honorable Darren
Madam President,
what is your point of order, please? Please state your point of order.
the member opposite is standing and just spewing accusations.
What is your point of order, please?
Just improper imputation. He's implying that something nefarious is happening in Green Turtle Key and wherever and the like. He does not have any evidence, not an inkling of evidence to support that. Madam President, we have to take the high road in these chambers. People are listening to our debate in these chambers, and we have to be accurate when we speak.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Senator Pickstock. Senator Darren Henfield, you mentioned something earlier about Green Turtle Key.
I got an information from a resident of Green Turtle Key, more than one, who indicated to me that Crown land is being disseminated to supporters of the Progressive Liberal Party.
Okay, do you have anything to lay or anything?
No, I don't wish to lay nothing. I don't wish to lay nothing. But I put it there, and so you deny it. You say it ain't true. Get up and say it ain't true. Get up and say it ain't true.
He also said it ain't true.
Senator.
But you think I can have it what I hear?
Senator Henfield. Order. Senator, please address the chair.
Mike, tell him to leave me alone so I can sit.
Senator Henfield, please address the chair. Just for clarification, Senator Henfield, did you previously say that it may or may not be true? Is that what you said?
That's what I said. But I said I haven't verified it yet, but I've gotten calls and messages from citizens in Green Tail Key, more than one. One a pastor. I don't want to call his name. Good man, right?
Mm-hmm.
Good man, you know.
Yeah.
Good man, right? And so I say these things so the government can look into them. I didn't say this to cast no aspersion. I don't believe no right-thinking government will do that. You know, and the pastor went on to say, you know, he say, Darren, he say, son, he saying this land is being given to people who are not from Green Tail Key proper. And they find that extremely odious, that someone would come to the key. But, well, we still don't know. All you got to do is deny it. All you got to do is deny it. All you got to do is deny it, man. I don't have much more time. I'm trying to wrap up. I don't have much more time. Yeah. And so I say these things for the government to look into them. Right? To look into. That's the only place we have to, for the people to know that we're speaking what they ask us to speak, which is our job as the opposition. right? When people make reports to us, it is our duty. It is our duty. Man, you don't want to go there, man. You're not that type of fella, man.
Order.
It is
Order.
our duty to represent the views of the opposition when they give us things to come. Their view is that the PLP given land to the supporters. That's their view. Yeah, that's their view. That's their view. That's their view. Yeah, your view is always welcome, man. Brother Duncan, your view is always welcome. That's their view, and I want the government to disabuse them of that view. Because all you got to do is say, no, it's not so. Yeah, it's only way, this is the way they know I talking, and you, the government, hear me talking. That's what this is all about. Well, it's a good thing you're all in control of this clock in here. Everybody talking about my time. I never hear no more thing but time. Madam President, with that, I thank you for your indulgence. And I rest. I thank you.
Thank you, Senator Henfield, for your contribution. The chair recognizes as many. Chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Michael Alcides.
Thank you very much, Madam President.
I think it keeps.
Thank you very much, Madam President. For the wrap up, I want to thank all senators for their contributions, and I just want to spend a few moments in the wrap up, Madam President. I want to assure all senators and Bahamians listening that this is not a matter that we are flippant about. There's no skullduggery, no deception, no duplicity, and no flagrant disregard for the law, no deceitful behavior. The fact of the matter is, Madam President, that there is a difference in opinion in the reading of the law as it is. And so what we decided is, yes, the external or the legal counsel of the central bank has a certain opinion. The government of the Bahamas developed a certain opinion based on reading of the law as it is, Section 17, which we're amending. We're adding a section into we're adding 17A. But Section 17 as it exists, Madam President, says the bank shall manage all official reserves of external assets of the Bahamas and give priority to safety before profitability of such assets. And then it says the bank may, pursuant to subsection 1, hold, manage, acquire, and sell any of the following assets, and it lists the assets: gold, notes and coins, balances payable, money at deposit, and then it goes on to address STRS's claims on international financial organizations, including special drawing rights held with the IMF and the reserve position of the Bahamas in the International Monetary Fund. And so our reading and our understanding is that when you say the bank may hold and manage those reserves, they do so as the fiscal agent on behalf of the government of the Bahamas. It is our opinion that that covered what is being done or what has been done with the SDRs. Admittedly, the lawyers of the central bank felt differently, and that is why we're here amending, particularly adding Section 17A, which specifically speaks to special drawing rights again, and speaks to explicitly saying that the minister might access those special drawing rights. And so we felt, in our opinion, that it was covered. The bank felt there should be a more explicit inclusion in the law, and that's what we're doing. And so it's not like I said, no skullduggery, deception, duplicity, or flagrant disregard for the law. It's just a different reading and a different opinion, which we think, Madam President, is the responsible thing to do. Because we could have said, well, that's your business, that's what you think, okay, fine. No, we said, no, let's come and let's rectify it, and so that the lawyers, the auditors, everybody can be on one page. Madam President, the other point I wanted to address was, yes, back in 2021, the central bank did indicate that those funds those SDRs would be used to augment the reserve, to add to the reserves. And I think one of my colleagues did say that the passage of time, things have changed. The economy is open, the reserves have strengthened, and so we can put those SDRs to what we consider better use, and that is refinancing some high interest debt with the lower interest SDRs. And so we think we're doing the right thing by coming here and making these amendments, Madam President. And I just want to say as well, the point was raised, and a few members referenced NIB and the position that NIB potentially finds itself in, and one senator says he doesn't want the central bank to end up in a position of the NIB vis-a-vis the reserves. I can say, Madam President, as I repeat, as I said this morning, the reserves are extremely healthy, the highest ever in the history, $2.5 billion, even after accessing these SDRs. And the government is mandated, along with the governor of the central bank, in that same section 17, to manage the reserve position to ensure that adequate reserves are in place at all times. And if there is any sort of concern about the level, a report is given and action is taken. And so, Madam President, we also believe that when we speak about additionally in this amendment, the other two things that did not get a lot of attention, but dropping the amount of advances that the central bank can loan to the government from 30% to 15.5%. Again, that is progress. It shows, even though the government might feel that their access to credit is being restricted, what it does is it sends the signals that the central bank is not the support or propping up the government, if I were to use the term. Madam President, and then as well, the other two we expect. The issue in terms of the central bank not being able to participate in the primary market, but get involved in the secondary market, will address some issues that some of the local financial institutions had in terms of pricing, etc. And so, Madam President, once again, I just want to thank all members for their contribution and ensure the Bahamian public that we believe, the lawyers say, we verily believe that we are acting prudently in terms of managing their affairs and putting the assets that we have at our disposal to maximum use for the benefit of the Bahamian people. And so, Madam President, with those few words, I would just commend the amendment to all colleagues, and notwithstanding solidarity and party discipline, I would make one last appeal to members opposite to see the wisdom in supporting the amendment. No, I understand that position you're taking, but to say, Madam President, we believe. We believe that given the circumstances, given the difference of views, that it is prudent to come here and do this amendment, and that is what we're doing. And so, Madam President, I move for second reading and committal for a bill for an act to amend the Central Bank of the Bahamas Act.
It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read a second time and committed. A bill for an act to amend the Central Bank of the Bahamas Act. As many as in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order that the bill be read a second time and committed.
A bill for an act to amend the Central Bank of the Bahamas Act.
For the second reading of bills,
There are none, Madam President.
Committee of the Whole.
President, I move that the Senate now resolve itself into a committee of the whole with the Vice President in the chair.
Is there a seconder?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the Senate do now resolve itself into the committee of the whole with the Vice President of the Senate in the chair. As many as in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The motion is carried.
Committee of the Whole.
Mr. Chairman, in respect to the bill for an act to amend the Central Bank Act, I move that the long title be agreed.
Is there a seconder? It has been moved and seconded that the long title of the bill be agreed. As many are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the short title be agreed.
Is there a
Second.
seconder? It has been moved and seconded that the short title of the bill be agreed. As many are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay.
Nay.
The motion is agreed. The short title is agreed.
Mr. Chairman, I move that clauses 2 through 5 be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that clauses 2 through 5 of the bill be agreed. As many are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The motion is carried. Clauses 2 through 5 of the bill are agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I move that the bill be now agreed in its entirety.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill be agreed in its entirety. As many are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay.
Nay.
The motion is agreed. The bill is agreed in its entirety.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the President do now take the chair.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the President do now take the chair. As many are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is carried. Madam President will now take the chair. Madam President, I beg leave to report that the Committee of the Whole has examined the bill, having made no amendments thereto.
Honorable Senators, the Vice President of the Senate and Chairman of the Committee of the Whole has reported that the committee has examined the bill, having made no amendments thereto. Third reading and passing of bills.
Madam President, I move for third reading and passing of a bill for an act to amend the Central Bank of the Bahamas Act.
Is there
Second.
a seconder?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read a third time and passed. As many as in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order that the bill be read a third time and pass.
A bill for an act to amend the Central Bank of the Bahamas Act.
Order that the bill do now pass and the title thereof declared to be the Central Bank of the Bahamas Amendment Act 2023. For the third reading of bills,
There are none, Madam President.
consideration of a House amendments, resolutions, discharge of select committees, notices for future meetings.
Madam President, I would like to renew all notices standing in the name of the government.
Orders for clerk. Adjournment.
Madam President, I move that the Senate at its rising do adjourn sine die.
It has been moved and seconded that the Senate at its rising, do adjourn, sine die. As many as in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The motion is carried. Final adjournment.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move that the Senate do now adjourn.
It has been moved and seconded. Sorry, is there a seconder?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the Senate do now adjourn. As many as in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The motion is carried. The Senate stands adjourned. Sine die.